Shinobi, have you ever heard someone playing the shamisen around here? I followed the sound and it led me to this well. It's faint, carried by the wind. It's coming from this hole. You hear it, do you not?
I hear nothing.
I see. Perhaps I alone can hear it. Nothing else matters. I must follow that melody. It truly stirs my soul.
This sound winds upwards from an ancient, decrepit village. It's a village hidden by the mists that coil in a forest deep below the earth. Only the devoted, or the exiled, can find it now.
Will you be cast out, or throw yourself in?
What?
If you wish to go to the very depths of Ashina, then you'd best cast yourself out.
It's hard to know what the lives of the ancient Ashina were like, save that they lived on land that was coveted by many. The gate before this jump is a Tori gate, which marks the transition from the mundane to the sacred, and the land below is indeed sacred. So sacred, in fact, that the water, rocks, and soil here in Mibu village once attracted the attention of the gods. One of the gods worshipped here was likely the serpent god, as its skin is found throughout the village, and another was likely Buddha, a deity friendly with the serpent god, whose statue can be found desecrated in the main temple. Then, far away to the west, some event caused the Sakura dragon to be cut free from its homeland. It drifted to the east, to Japan, where it found the fertile depths of Ashina. Then it settled here, conjuring a divine realm, usurping the lesser gods, and tearing the fate of Mibu village in half. It seems like a lucky few would have immediately become citizens of the palace, these nobles, but that also means that most Mibu had to simply content themselves with the divine waters that began flowing through their village. These waters bestowed a ton of bounties upon the Mibu, bounties that were distributed throughout all of Ashina. Dragonspring sake, a drink that no words can do justice. Mibu balloons, orbs of water that were sealed with bountiful prayers, and even magnificent medicines good enough to be stored in this chest, apparently created by Dogen, the famous doctor. And yet, for all the perks that were offered by its proximity, the divine realm still lay tragically out of reach, until the Okami clan arrived in Mibu village. This group of warrior women, technically called the Kura Okami clan, were among the first to figure out how to ascend. They did this by accruing 3 ingredients that they knew were stemming from the fountainhead, and they created incense with them. The first ingredient was the stem of a sakura tree, for even to this day, a sakura blooms in Mibu village. It might even be an everblossom, and the Mibu have prayed with the power of sakura for the longest time. The second ingredient was the fragrance of a flower that thrives in the deepest waters of the fountainhead. They called it a lotus of the palace. And lastly, they offered a shelter stone, which is something that grows inside the body of one who has long drank from the fountainhead waters. It's a lot like these cancer-like grave wax lumps that manifest in all of the undead in the game. And these shelter stone rocks too can appear in the bodies of those who drink from these immortal waters. And wrapped in the fountainhead fragrance, the Okami ascended to the palace. Here, like the palace nobles before them, they too could drink of the purest waters, beginning this transformation into lithe, carp-like beings. And as this journey to the fountainhead entered the realm of possibility, a culture of Dragonspring pilgrimage began to emerge.
What year is it?
What year? An odd question.
Tell me.
It's the year of the Dragonspring pilgrimage.
Every few years, those seeking to join the wedding procession would journey to Mibu, drawn to the village by black pine trees, which were set aflame with a fire that never went out. If you could pass a test, then you were able to join a procession that led all the way to the wedding chamber, a place that we know gives you the chance at admission to the Divine Palace. And the founder of Mibu Village states that the goal of this procession was to meet the Divine Dragon, and for this, participants were required to master the secret Mibu breathing technique, which allows one to breathe underwater. Without this, the dragon cannot be met, and my best guess is that breathing underwater somehow facilitates a transformation into becoming a noble of the palace. You're basically becoming a fish, after all. And perhaps this is why we find so many upturned legs underneath Mibu Lake. Failed practice at breathing underwater, perhaps? Or perhaps they burrowed underground looking for slugs. Hear me out, because all over the village we find a sort of slug harvest. They're on boards, they're piled up on the ground where the Mibu are digging, they're everywhere, and they might even be valuable. If they're the same type as those found in the Precious Bait tooltip, because this is food that was given to the Master Carp that was found at Fountainhead Palace. This would be a good example of an item that the Mibu could have brought to the palace for trade, because there was trade between the Divine Realm and the Ashina. Our proof is in the dragon's tally board, a sort of idol that was given to merchants who were recognized as of dragon rank by the Imperial Palace. All was going well, but then war. The Okami suddenly, and without cause it seems, descended upon Ashina. They did battle with its people, and they put an end to any goodwill that did exist between the two lands. All records of this war call it long forgotten, so we have no idea what triggered this animosity. Perhaps the nobles began to age and began craving the vitality of the Ashina. Maybe the dragon began to get sick. Or I wonder if the Okami simply became ambitious. Whatever it was, we know that it was almost certainly initiated by the Fountainhead because it came at little cost to them. Because even though their assault was eventually repelled by the poison of Sabimaru, it's unlikely that the Okami ever descended in their physical forms. The hanging scroll of an old battle hung in Ashina Dojo speaks of lightning-wielding ghosts that once lurked in the lands of the Ashina, and this is a description that can fit the Okami. These women wield lightning, which is a power of the Divine Dragon, and there are 3 known instances of the Okami projecting apparitions down upon the physical realm. The first is that of Orin of the Water. If you're wondering why we count her as of the Okami, well, it's because her ghostly form is actually weak to the poison of Sabimaru, which is effective against the Okami. This is important information to know because you're not getting past this shamisen player without a fight.
Why are you crying?
Because I'm sad.
What are you sad about?
I don't know where Lord Sakusa is, or what he's doing. It breaks my heart. If I can't see him, I'd at least like to know. But no matter how many letters I send, he never writes me back. And no one will tell me where he is. Actually, sir, can you tell me? Where is Lord Sakusa?
I don't know.
Oh, you're a liar too. Why must everyone hide him from me?
You're probably sitting there waiting for me to explain Orin's lore, but honestly, it's tough. There are no other references to Lord Sakusa in the game, save for one, this item description of Jinza's Jizo statue, which Jinzaemon gives to you at the end of his journey.
I must give you my thanks, Shinobi.
Your thanks.
You brought the shamisen player to me just a moment ago. She caressed me while playing her sweet melody. It turns out she was calling to me this whole time. Shinobi, please take this. I'm so very tired now.
This statue was once given to Lord Sakusa, and assumedly this was by Orin of the Water. somehow it ended up in Jinzeimon's hands, and my best guess is that Lord Sakusa gave this statue to Jinzeimon's father because Jinzeimon's father does know about Mibu village. He probably eventually passed this down to Jinzeimon with a warning. Never visit the ominous town hidden in the mists. The second apparition of the Okami is the corrupted monk, of course, whose nebulous form guards the Mibu village cave entrance. After the war, it's unlikely that any more marriage processions were being accepted at the palace, and this animosity becomes the simplest explanation for her threatening presence here. The third set of apparitions are the bandits, conjured by the Mist Noble in the hidden forest. This boss has usurped one of Buddha's temples, adorning it with a more homely feel, and he strings the poor monks up by their ankles.
Hey you. Will you slay he who opposes Buddha? The one of whom I speak hides in an abandoned temple up ahead. He sealed away the village in a shadowy fog, so that he can fool the villagers. I've gotten terribly old, but this old man would like to see Lord Buddha return to his temple once more.
The most curious reveal of this dialogue is that the Mist Noble seeks to seal the village away to fool the villagers. I'm pretty sure I know what fooling the villagers means, because by sealing away the village, you're essentially maintaining this status quo in Mibu village, preventing the Buddhist monks from returning to the village and keeping the village isolated from the world. But the manipulation of the villagers goes even further.
Basket, 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 basket. I am a basket.
This basket case is named Shosuke, one of the few who actually resisted the temptation of drinking the now stagnant water of the fountainhead.
What is wrong with this village?
I'd sure like to know that too. Before I knew it, everyone had gone insane. For a while, I too was in a daze, but I snapped out of it after I threw up. I was thirsty, so I drank a lot of sake. I'm sure that's what made me throw up. The head priest sometimes treats us to sake, but you know, when you drink sake, you get thirsty. The sake cask runs dry in no time, so everyone has no choice but to drink the water in the ponds and rivers. But the more you drink it, the thirstier you get. You get thirstier and thirstier, can't ever drink enough.
The water here was obviously once very pure, but now it's stagnant, and something's wrong with it. It is, of course, very similar to the rejuvenating waters of Ashina, as the villagers who drink this become undying, because when you kill one villager, the very same villager resurrects a few moments later, confirming that the villagers are in fact undying, and on top of that, they now have this undying fear of fire, which is also in line with Ashina's rejuvenating water.
An unquenchable fire. Even now, the thought of it gives me chills. The hunter Inuhiko started burning pine resin and locked himself in his house. His pine resin burns a long time. It's a real nuisance.
The villagers previously destroyed these black pines that were guiding people to the village, but now it seems like a man named Inuhiko defended those pines and hoarded their ever-burning resin. For this, the water-drinking villagers came to loathe him, and they hide in the earth outside his home, just waiting for him to come out.
Inuhiko is the village outcast. He likes eating wild animal meat and the sort. That's why the head priest doesn't give him any sake.
The head priest is holed up inside the main temple, and he's hoarding what is almost certainly sake from the Dragonspring.
Yes, I can feel it. Dissolving, liquefying. Oh, the cup has run dry. But this won't do. It's too dilute. Refuses to dissolve completely. Unfit to be citizens of the palace. Oh.
In the Fountainhead Palace, you can find this pure water of the palace, which was a drink that once visitors to the palace were greeted with when they arrived. It transforms the priest into a noble, confirming 3 things. First, that humans can become nobles. Second, that those with red robes are high-ranking head priests. And third, the fact that he drops carp scales confirms that the nobles of the palace are, in fact, carp-like in form, explaining Mibu's affinity for slugs, and also explaining the worship of the great carp up above. As I tie this episode up, some of you might be saying, "Hey Vaati, why don't you talk about the giant rope creature at the end of Mibu Village?" But technically it also appears in the Fountainhead as well, so until then, afraid not. If you can forgive that pun, then consider checking out the new merch below the video. This is the fate of kings, the skull of a monarch offered up in a dark ritual. The goal with my merch is to kind of give off the same vibe as many of the Souls games give, because I think it's cool to rep the games that you're passionate about without wearing clothing that's too video gamey, and I think we walked that line pretty well here. The art is available in red bronze or a black and white line art, and sales from this also directly support the artist John Devlin as well, who recently had some of his art put on merchandise and sold without his permission. So it's a pleasure to be able to give the guy some legitimate sales in return, and it's really fun to create merchandise that you might feel proud of wearing. So please, if you're running low on t-shirts, or maybe you need a hoodie to keep you warm in the winter, then consider the fate of kings, and I'll see you in the next one.